Hello, today I'm going to be talking about a German Panzer Division during early World War II, so 1939 primarily during the invasion of Poland. So last episode I have talked about the German Infantry Division in the Wehrmacht, and I think it's important to talk about other types of divisions such as the Panzer Division. As we know, Panzer Divisions were often spearheads of advancing columns in the German army, especially in so-called blitzkrieg tactics, this lightning warfare with tank divisions spearheading the attacks going in during the invasion of Poland. So, I'll talk about the tank division. So, the Panzer Division, or the Wehrmacht tank division in 1939. So, first of all, I'm probably going to do a little organization. I think that would be nice to tell you exactly where all of the things are. So, to start off, destroy Panzer Division. Usually its strength is about 12,000 or so men in this division. And then in this division, there's actually going to be 2 brigades rather than 3 regiments as we saw in infantry division. So normally this is what we call a square brigade. So that's just dividing it into 2 brigades, and those brigades each having 2 regiments. So it's going to have 2 brigades here, and one of those brigades is a tank brigade, but interestingly, the other one's not a tank brigade. The other one is a motorized infantry brigade. So infantry, motorized. And both of these brigades will have a size of around 3,000 or so personnel, and they'll both be divided into 2 regiments. So I'll start off with the tank brigade. So the tank brigade is divided equally into 2 equal tank regiments. So these panzer regiments both have the exact same components. So I'll be working on one of them. They won't have anything on the battalion level. They'll be divided directly into companies. Or no, they each have 2 battalions, I believe, and each of those battalions possess different numbers of companies. And this is going to be very general, because actually certain panzer divisions have different organization than others, and they actually varied much more widely than did the infantry divisions throughout Wave 1 through Wave 4. These were very diverse looking structures, considering that they often went outside of their planned organization in order to meet certain goals and requirements. So it has 4 companies, and 2 of these are going to be light tank companies. Light. So usually Panzer 1s and sometimes Panzer 2s as well. And then actually the last one, the third one, is a medium medium, or mixed company, because it has both lighter tanks like Panzer 1s, and it's supposed to have some heavier tanks as well, such as Panzer 3s and even Panzer 4s, but since it's not entirely those, it's more mixed. It also has some Panzer 1s and 2s typically. And then the last one is it's actually kind of a staff unit. It's like a staff tank company, although it's not entirely that way completely. And these tanks are something called Panzer Divisions. I think I'll just write that down. Befehlswagen. So Panzer Befehlswagen is just a type of tank that was often used as a staff tank or as a command tank, and there weren't too many of these. There were usually I think like 2 or so. I don't know if the math is correct, but hold on, not 2, 6. There should be 6 of these in each company. 6 Panzerbefehlswagens. So this is the organization of one of the battalions, and every regiment has 2 battalions, and every division has 2 regiments. So then theoretically, they should have a brigade should actually have 4 sets of this organization right here. 4 sets of those. So if that's what a Panzer brigade is, then what is a motorized brigade? Good question. And that's exactly what I'm going to be talking about next. So this one's actually divided into 2 unequal parts. So the first one is just a motorized regiment, and the motorized regiment is in turn divided into battalions. Two battalions of motorized infantry, and then each of these battalions have 4 companies. And then these companies were typically just motorized companies, although I think one of these were actually I'm just going to draw it right here to represent motorcycle. It's actually motorcycle company, one of these. And then I also believe that one of these is like a staff unit of some sort. And then there's this, and the other regiment is actually a motorcycle regiment. This is motorcycle. And then the motorcycle regiment is, as you'd expect, they use motorcycles. So they're infantry, but they're mobile. They don't go on foot. But unlike the normal motorized infantry, which go on trucks and other cars, these guys go on motorcycles. So it's going to have a pretty similar structure. Again, this is just a very basic, typical organization of what it should look like in theory, although it almost never matches, actually never matches I think it never matches the exact organization of the of the exact one. So you will have 4 of these. So 4 of these motorized infantry companies and or motorcycle companies, excuse me, and that's going to pretty much be the organization of the motorcycle regiment. So you have a motorcycle regiment, a motorized regiment, and then 2 tank regiments that are in a tank division. But wait, there's more. There's typically an artillery regiment as well. And it quite makes sense, actually, because oftentimes you will need an artillery support from the back while you're committing to an attack. Even though you want to be fast, that doesn't mean you can't have certain slow units. And sometimes they later figured out how to put artillery and anti-tank guns in those slow materials onto vehicles to bring them forward, actually. So this is made up of 2 battalions as well. And actually each battalion, I believe, only has 3 companies, unless I'm wrong about this. Three companies. And this is going to be an artillery regiment. In total, the artillery regiments pretty much going to have like 1,000 to 1,500 men in it. And you can understand how this artillery regiment is considerably different than that of an infantry division's artillery regiment. The artillery regiments that are inside infantry divisions have a completely different structure. They're made up of 3 different battalions, each of 3, I think 3 lights and 1 heavy artillery regiment was this one. There's just 2 battalions that are split into 3 brigades, is what it is. And it's going to be somewhat the same structure for other support units as well. So anti-tank, there's going to be an anti-tank battalion as well. And the anti-tank battalion is going to be made up of, I think it's made up of 4 companies. And then there's an engineer. I can draw it like that. Seen this being drawn, very common as well. This little design. And for these, I believe there's only 3. And then for signals, there's also signals battalion, and I believe the signals battalion has either 2 or 3. I think it has 2. Two companies, that is. So, unless I'm forgetting something, this should be it. This is going to be the only part. This should be all of the parts of the Panzer Divisions organization. And then I'll start talking about other important things, like, well, what are some different Panzer Divisions? How are they all different? Well, for the invasion of Poland, while in the original organization looked something like the one you see on the page right now, it didn't always follow, because they actually changed the organization for certain divisions at certain moments, adding battalions here and there, and grouping regiments here and there. So they often had extra things rather than just their normal tank, Panzer Regiment or Panzer Brigade and Schützen Brigade. They usually often have other elements as well that they tag along. So that's why I say there's quite a diverse group of units, which is interesting because there aren't that many units. So I guess this is what I can talk about next. So the 1st Division, alright, so a little history on this. There were no tank divisions originally. There were only Panzer regiments until this famous Heinz Guderian man came along and decided to change the doctrine to more concentrated armor. So that's why he wanted tank divisions. So he later was able to convince his superiors, and eventually Hitler became very in support of his plan of creating tank divisions, because not many other countries, I think no countries had created tank divisions before the Germans did. The Germans were the first ones to do it, and I believe the French did it later after the Germans. So after Heinz Guderian convinced the HQ to allow this, they formed 3 tank regiments, tank divisions, and they were spread around in 3 different locations as well. So and this was in like October 1935, I think, October or November. So the first one was led by Maximilian von Feix, the second one by Guderian himself, and third one was some other general. I'll write that. So this is Maximilian von Feix. This was Heinz Guderian. And I actually forgot the general who commanded the third one, and this was very early on. And the first one was located at Weimar, which was, as you know, the first, like the original capital of it. And the second one was placed in Berlin, and the third one was actually in the Bavarian town of Würzburg. actually, hold on, I think the umlaut is over here. So this was the original 3 divisions, and then they added some more. They added the 4th. So up until this point, most other armies of this of the interwar era usually had like tank brigades or tank regiments, but they never really had tank divisions. So this was quite a revolutionary idea at this point. And then 1939, with the invasion of Poland rolling around, August and September, early September, they started making this, especially in August, because this is just around the invasion. So this is when reorganization happened. First, second, and third, they changed a lot around, and they started to make new ones as well. They made 4th and 5th Panzer Divisions, and this was actually pretty useful at this point. They were able to get so many tank divisions, and how they organized them. I guess you don't need the leader right now. That's not the important thing. It's the organization. So the first one went to the 10th Army, which was Reichenau's main strong attack from the south. And the 2nd and 3rd were, I believe, both in the 14th Army. And then the 4th Division was actually put right next to the 1st Panzer Division in the 10th Army. And then the 5th one was also in the 14th, I think. I am pretty sure that the 8th Army didn't get any tank divisions. And then at this point they also had a 10th Panzer Division, but this was severely weaker than the other 5. This was this was absolutely the smallest of these. Oh, by the way, this one's 4th Army actually, not 14th. Yeah, it's the 5th one that's in the 14th Army, along with the 2nd. 3rd Army was in Heinz Guderian's corps, alongside 4th Army in the north. So yeah, this one was actually in like the 4th Army, but in like the rear. It was in reserve, so I guess like rear. It was a much weaker one, and it helped kind of like protect the back of Guderian's advances in the 19th Army Corps. And then there was actually also another one with a name, Panzer Division Kampf, also undersized, another undersized one, and this one was in the 3rd Army. And this was attacking from East Prussia. It was one of the main forces that was going about in the invasion from north, participating in the Battle of Mowa, that I actually covered in one of my first invasion of Poland videos. Then if you watched that, then you would know exactly to deep detail what Panzer Division Kampf was. And then you also had something called light divisions. I'm not sure if I want to talk about that now, but I guess I'll just mention them. So they had 1st Light Division, 2nd Light Division, 3rd Light Division, and 4th Light Divisions. in the army, but they also went by the name of a sixth Panzer Division, 7th Panzer Division, 8th Panzer Division, and 9th Panzer Division. And these four were respectively in the 10th Army, although it was in reserve, so it didn't actually do fighting. First Light didn't do any real fighting, I believe, because they were more in the reserve. And then the 7th and the 8th Panzer Divisions, or so-called, or actually it's just 2nd and 3rd Light, were in the actual fighting in the 10th Armies. And then the 9th Panzer Division, aka the 4th Light Division, was a part of the 14th Army, attacking Silesia. So, these two are the exact same divisions, but they're just different names, like 3rd Light Division. If you hear something called the 3rd Light Division, know that that's basically the same thing as 8th Panzer Division. It was actually officially called the 3rd Light Division, but some people mistakenly calling it 8th Panzer Division, probably because that's what it kind of was at some point. So this is where all they were. And by the way, I believe the two strongest were the 1st and 3rd. 3rd was the strongest Panzer Division in the entire army. And this was found in Kluge's 4th Army that was fighting in Pomerania. And the 1st Panzer Division was in the south, in Army Group South, in the 10th Army. So, if that's where all of them were, by the way, there's also like the 25th Regiment, which is also mentioned sometimes as a separate unit, but as far as I know, that's actually simply a part of the 2nd Light Division, and I think it's been joined there since 1938, so it's not a different thing if you get asked. So also, what's in these Panzer Divisions? I'll just actually make a new page for that. What tanks are actually in it? So, again, this one thinks that there's huge discrepancy between what's on the book and what's actually existing. So in theory, or at least this is what Heinz Guderian called for, was that, so right, in theory, or planned, there were supposed to be 12 command tanks known as Panzer Befehlungswagen, I think. Panzer Befehlswagen, right? She actually don't know the exact spelling of Panzer Befehlswagen. I hope that's right. But that's the command tank that was used. There's, in theory, supposed to be 12 of those, actually. So that means 6 in each Panzer regiment. Because all 12 of these were in the tank brigade. And then there's supposed to be a good amount of Panzer, like idealistically, there would be around like 100 or so, I guess 100 or so Panzer IIs. I mean, they were expecting a very low amount, probably like less than 25 Panzer Is. Or maybe even like less than 20, I'd say. They really want to minimize this, and then they wanted around like 100 or so, like 90 to 100, 90 to 110 Panzer IIs, and then they wanted around like 150 to 175 Panzer IIIs, which are a lot bigger tanks. And then like 50 or 60 Panzer IVs, which were the biggest heavy tanks that were in existence. So if you were going to do this and followed by all these metrics, then you'd reach something around like 330 tanks. More or less, like maybe like 290 to 340 or 350 tanks, I suppose. So if these were the amount of tanks that were of each category that was planned, how much were there usually actually? Well, I can't give numbers because they are widely different between every Panzer Division, but generally speaking, what was completely out of plan was there was actually a lot more of Panzer Is and Panzer IIs rather than Panzer IIIs and Panzer IVs. Panzer IIIs were not the majority. The majority ended up becoming Panzer Is and Panzer IIs. Perhaps because miscalculation error, the German war equipment didn't have sufficient funds to create large tanks, or simply because the war doctrine didn't favor this. It would not be advantageous to create so many Panzer IIIs. Rather, just make a bunch of smaller Panzers that are cheaper to create, but these tanks more numerous, and that actually became more effective. So there are a lot more Panzer Is and Panzer IIs in the command, and there are also a small amount of Panzer Befehlswagens that participated in the invasion of Poland as well. And Panzer IIIs and Panzer IVs were much smaller quantities. And in fact, a lot of the tank division sizes were actually like pretty similar. They're usually around like 280 to like 340 tanks. So I don't know, a little smaller, but not far from what's planned. However, there were smaller tanks in general throughout all of the Panzer divisions. So that's what was a tremendous change to the planned action. So if that was of any use, if you learned something, if this was educational to you, and you want to hear more, then please you can, I guess, subscribe to this channel, like this video, and I would appreciate feedback in the comments, because I'm a pretty new person in YouTube platform, trying to upload some good videos every once in a while, and I want some feedback from some of my viewers through the comments below. So if you could do that, that would be appreciated.